Right. Let's see, we're live on Facebook. I believe we're live on YouTube. Home. Home. Hold on. Okay, I see us on YouTube. Okay. Hold on. Okay, I see us on YouTube. I see us on Facebook. Are you on, Mom?
My thing is on.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. For those of you who might be joining us new today, I need to fix my thing. Let's mute that. Okay. For those of you who are joining us today, and this is your first time, I'm Judelle. And in the background, you can see that's Judy, wherever she is. It's hard to run my finger. There we go, right there. And we are going to be teaching you how to make the Antique Lighthouse today. This is part of the Quiltworx Box program. If you haven't heard of the Quiltworx Box program, I highly encourage you to check out the Quiltworx Box Club group on Facebook. So just type that into your little Facebook search bar or go to box.quiltworx.com and you can see more information. We've been running this. We're about halfway through 2024. And this is the Q2 box. And this is for the small project. We'd have two tracks. One is a large project where you make a quarter of a large project quilt each quarter. And the other is small box where you make 4 different small projects in over the course of a year. We are only going to have the 2024 boxes available for ordering through the end of this month. And then we're going to start transitioning over to next year's program. And those will start opening up in September of 2024. And they will start shipping. First quarter boxes for the large ship would be, let's see, February of 2025. The small one would be March of 2025, and then quarterly from there. So this program has been a great opportunity. I'm not going to go through all of the details of the program today, but definitely check out both of those locations. If you join the Box Club, I'll start putting out more information about what it is. You'll probably see some marketing on it as well coming through our Facebook page over the next 2 months. So I wanted to, before we get started with class today, go over some important information about color. Let's see. I see Laura DeYoung saying hello from Michigan. Hi, Laura. Nice to see you. Also, hopefully my hair doesn't get in the way too much of my mic, but everything should be good. So I had some questions yesterday at the Quiltworx, on the Quiltworx Box Club page about the Antique Lighthouse colorways. So I just wanted to go over some things with you. Your boxes did not have a picture in them of the colorway that you were doing, and it wasn't intentional. I thought you all had pictures already, which was obviously my mistake. And 2, We had talked in the past about how to use Quiltster to get the information. Someone mentioned in that conversation that the kits did not follow the colorway of the original pattern designs. This is kind of true when it comes to the inside block, the star block on the interior. I'm going to go over a couple things with you just so that makes a little bit more sense. And then also, moving forward, we're going to put a picture of each of the colorways in there, but I'm also going to direct you on where to find those. So I got to switch views here for just a second. Let's see which. I want to go to, I believe it's this one. It is. So on the Quiltworx website, if you are looking for the box club, if you start at Quiltworx.com, you can go to products and then go down here and it says Quiltworx box subscription. If you click on that, it takes you to box.Quiltworx.com. Or you can just go directly there by typing in box.Quiltworx.com. But I will note for everyone, it is not, I get a lot of questions about this because people go to Quiltworx.com looking to find where they signed up for the boxes and they're not sure where to go from there. So you can click on that link, it brings you here. And when you click on fabric patterns and boxes, you can scroll down, choose Antique Lighthouse, and this is where you originally purchased it. On this page, there's some links here. Stonehenge Gradations Cotton, Tim Holtz Abandoned in Monochrome, Jellyfish Batiks, and Dear Stella Sandy Paws. Those are the 4 colorways we offered. Now they are all a little bit different when it comes to how the center is set up. So I didn't, and so it doesn't make sense to edit the instructions to match any one version. But if you click on any of those links, and I already have them open here, but this is the Antique Lighthouse. You can get a picture of the quilt and then it shows you all of the fabrics that are in your kit and the total amount. There's also one for jellyfish and it shows you the picture. And these are easily printable or just you can open it on any sort of device that can access the internet. So I had thought that most of you already had these colorways saved using these links. But if you didn't, you can get them from that location because I've already sent the boxes, so I can't throw a picture in them. When you get the Q3 boxes, you'll definitely have that. The other place that you can go is to Quiltster. So a lot of you, every single one of you has Quiltster. And I know that some of you have said, oh, Quiltster's not my thing. I'm not going to use that part of my subscription box. It's still worth it for everything else. But I really want to encourage you to try it. And part of the reason why is because you can try it at no extra cost to you as a part of this program, and you can spend some time learning it without there's no financial repercussions. It just will take you a little bit of time. Also, there's a lot of valuable information on it. So how do you do this? First, up here, when you get to this page, you would click here and you can sign up, or if you already have a plan, once you get signed up and you have a plan, or when you sign up, if you don't have a plan, it'll ask you to put in a coupon. In the Get to Know Us booklet in your box, there's a coupon code that you put in here. People have asked, why isn't it different for every single box? Because the way that this works is you put the coupon code in and it applies the coupon. It comes back and checks how many boxes you've purchased. And then it says, okay, this person has 6 or 8 or 15 or 2. And it says, because of the number of boxes they have, here's the number of months of Quiltster that they will get added to their account. You still need to put in a credit card. Once those months expire, if you don't want to continue it, you can simply come in here and click Cancel Plan. If you do want to continue it, then it will just take whatever version of the plan you signed up for, and it will bill you for the next month. You can also change your plan. So if you decide, I have a monthly, I love this thing, I want to change it to an annual, you can do so, or vice versa. So anyway, the key is, if you already have a Quiltster account, you can just apply the coupon through your account page right here. If it's new to you, you'll get a spot when you're going through the sign up section where it asks you for a coupon, and you can put the coupon in at that time. So once you do that, if you go to Quilt Planner and you click on Quilt Patterns, and then you search for Antique Lighthouse, you can open this up, click Create Project, and down here we have some pre-saved templates. So somebody said, if we don't know what our pattern looks like, what good is Quiltster going to do us? Well, when you click down here, you can see all of the options, and it has an image there for what your quilt looks like. And then over here, of course, you can see the version of the quilt that you purchased. So you click Customize. We're just going to open up Jellyfish here. Create Project. And now this saves this image right to your account. So now you have it in there. You can click on each of these spaces. You can click the edit button. You can zoom in on this. You can see, you can hold your, just float your mouse over the top of any of the fabrics, and you can see the SKUs for the fabrics that were used in it. You can close this and you can go to your yardage chart. You can see all the yardage information by the fabric. You can also click on by block and you can see a fabric reference. Then you can see how many 5-inch or how many strips and what size strips you need to cut for each of those fabrics. So if you ordered a pre-cut kit, all these strips have already been cut for you. If you ordered one by yardage, you have a full yardage cut based on the by fabric button, but you also have labels on each of them that say G1, G2, G4, etc. You can also click on by group, and for this pattern, by group is really helpful. Everybody's G group is set up to follow the instructions in the original design exactly, but I did take some liberties on the J group, which is this block in the center here. And hold on, I gotta set up my screen a little bit different here for a second. So when you look at this and you see J1, J1, J2, J2, J3, J3, that tells you I used 2 fabrics for J1, 2 fabrics for J2, and 2 fabrics for J3. In your pattern, I'm going to switch views here. So in your pattern, the graphic on page 15 is really helpful for you. It shows you where all of the fabric references go. Now in this case, it has a J1A, B, C, and D. I only used 2 colors. I didn't use 4. So what I did in your kits is I labeled all of your strips to say J1B and D. So those ones share a color. And J1A and C, and those ones share a color. Then I went on to J2. So in your pattern, we use the same color in the cover quilt as on all of the J2, but in a lot of your kits, the only one that uses the same is the Stonehenge version. The rest of them all have different colors there. I used 2. So I used a J2A and a J2B. So if you were going to write in your pattern, if it would help you, I'm going to click on this and I'm going to show you I added an A and a B here. And then there's a fabric J3B, J3C, J3D, and J3A in your patterns. So if I only used 2 there, I labeled the colors as J3A and J3C. I think, for example, I'm going to switch to a different screen here. So in the one that Judy's making for today, for example, I use the same color in all of the J3 spaces. So those of you who open up that kit, you will have a J3A, B, C, and D sticker on the same color. It's just that we use the same color in all those places, and the pattern was written with 4 different colors. So I just followed the pattern and put the stickers on there. So look at double check your stickers. I followed the directions as closely as possible. If we doubled up on the color, I put both stickers or both references on there. I also added the A and the B to the J2 on your stickers if I used more than one. So it could be a little bit different, but it wasn't intentional to make it more complicated. It was just the way that we had it set up. You can then, in Quiltster, click on the print button here. Oh, whoops, hold on, I need to switch screens. Let's go back. Hold on. I forgot to switch screens so you guys could see what I was seeing. Let's go back. Create project. Actually, we can open up the one that I was playing with. Okay, so right here, over on the left-hand side of the screen is a print button. We click on that print button, and it opens up a page. Now, you can save this, bookmark this on your computer, because whether or not you have a Quiltster subscription in the future, you can always get back to this page if you want to. Things you can do, you can click on the image and make it large. You can save this to your computer using Save Image As, and you can print a large picture of it. And you can also see all of the yardage versions. You can print each of those yardage versions. So if I'm on Buy Fabric and I come up underneath the picture and I click Print, then I can use my printer to print a document that has all the details in it. If you want it in all 3 different views, oops, sorry, I closed my, hold on. Let's go back to here. I closed my browser. Let's go Quiltster.com. So if you want all 3 different views on that, you just have to click on the button on the print page under that you want. So either by fabric, by block, or by group here. And then you need to click print, and you can print it in all those ways. You can also send it, you can click this button and get a hyperlink that you can send to your email or send to your phone or save on your phone or whatever. But you can send this information back to yourself as well. So those are different ways that you can get all of the information on your colorway. And when you get each of your boxes, you really should go out to Quiltster and click on the version of your quilt that you want and save that out and print all of those versions anyway, even if we put a picture of the version of the quilt into your kit, because there's lots of great information there that you can use. I think I included a link on the Quiltworx box page about using, it has a more detailed description on how to use Quiltster in general, how to color your own project, how to break it down into subgroups, and so on. So it's a really great resource for all sorts of things with your project. And even if we do send you a picture, we really think that you should go out and use that. So, all right. that's the information on colorway today. So now we're going to switch over and let Judy start talking about or teaching you the project. So hold on. All right, Judy, you're on.
Okay. So today we're going to pretend like you guys are brand new, and we're going to go over some different things that you're going to want for your project. First of all, you need a rotary cutter, you need to add a quarter ruler, and you need a fold template. The fold template's just a piece of template plastic and with your name written on it so you don't lose it when you're in a classroom. The add a quarter ruler mine is actually 2.5 inch by, it looks like it's 12 inches. So it's probably one that I cut down to the size I wanted. My favorite ruler for cutting fabrics when I'm working on projects at my machine is actually the Creative Grids 3 inch by 18 inch ruler. I'm not sure you can get them anymore, but I would definitely go out there and look for them because they're great. We're also going to be using the leaf ruler, which is a ruler that we have for doing curved piecing when we're ready to start doing curved piecing, or not for the cutting process. Okay, so those are basically our rulers. Then we're going to use some fabric glue pens from, a lot of companies have the different pens. The glue that goes on the inside is the same no matter what company, whether it's from Soline, Fons and Porter, Uline, all kinds of them, but they're just a fabric glue pen. We also use repositionable glue. There's a couple companies that have repositionable glue out there, but we do use repositionable glue. And we will probably use we've used a little bit of the Yoo-hoo glue as well. You're going to have a stiletto, a pair of scissors that has a curve on it. You're probably going to want to have a marker. You're probably going to want to have a highlighter. And then you're going to need a seam ripper, a pair of tweezers. My seam ripper has tweezers on the bottom of it. And I have 2 or 3 different pencils. And then we have our Soline pencil. And so all of these are tools that we pretty much use on a daily basis around here. We also have paper clips, and we have lots of paper clips and lots of binder clips. You can never have enough of these, so buy them by the 10,000s if you're going to start doing ours. And then we, of course, have flower pens and little tiny pens as well. So whatever variety of pens you have are great. We like the flower pens because if we want to decide we want to do a fold back with our paper with the pin the fabric underneath, you can fold back over the flower pens because they're flat. All right. So basically those are our basic supplies. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit of difference about the glue because I get a lot of people asking me all the time about the glue.
And
so
also, Mom, I believe that they had flower pens and the repositionable glue in their box.
In their boxes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the 3 different types of glue. Yoo-hoo, you can get it in the big tubes, smaller tubes. But we used it for probably 20 years for putting the very first fabric piece onto the back side of the paper. We used it for a lot of different things, applique. I still like it because it dries. It doesn't stay sticky like a repositionable glue. However, when you're working with light fabrics and really light batiks, it has a tendency to show through with your newsprint, and once you glue it, if you don't pull it away from each other before you iron it, you basically bake that glue onto the back of your fabric, and then you have to get it wet to wash it off. So a lot of people got to the point where they're like, well, I prefer the repositionable, all right? So the nice thing about the repositionable glue is you can put it on the back side of your very first section for your foundation paper. You don't use it all the way through, just on the first section. And then when you go to pull off that section or remove the paper, it comes off a lot better than if you'd use the repositionable glue, all right? The downfall of repositionable glue is it does have a tendency to gum up the bottom of your pressure foot, so you have to keep making sure that to clean that off, because if you get too much on the back side of your pressure foot on the bottom, then your paper and your fabric won't feed through. So just keep it wiped off with some Clorox wipes. It is water soluble, so it comes off. The other thing about the repositionable, if you use too much of it on the back side of your template layout sheets, then it gets onto the fabric and it collects dust if it's a small wall hanging over the ears. So there again, just kind of brush it off with some water when you're done if you're worried about that, all right? And then you have your glue sticks, where this is actually a fabric glue. I don't use it to glue paper and fabric together. I really just use it for fabric to fabric. When I'm working with my patterns and I'm trying to put fabric swatches down into my patterns or on my template pages, then I either use this or I use the Yoo-hoo. Don't use this as something to put fabric swatches in your book or on your foundation papers, because when you go to pull it off, now you have all of these spots where you have repositionable glue. And that's a mess, and then your book won't open and close because it's always going to be gluing back together. So both of these are better to use if you want it to dry, because this doesn't dry, all right? So those are our three choices of glue. And then for those of you that go, well, I'm not going to use glue because I won't put it on my fabric, I say that's fine. Because a long time ago, we invented pins. And we all like to use pins sometimes. So you're more than welcome to use your pins in place of the glue. It works as well. All right. So there's options out there for everybody. And we have a lot of opinions. And it's just like, you try it. If you like it, continue to use it. If you don't like it, then find something else that will take its place and get you to the same place. Because we don't get hung up on things around here like glue sticks or pins or the type of pin or whether it's too big or too small. And once we find what works and we're happy with it, then we continue forward with it. All right. Another product that I didn't talk about is we also use a lot of binder clips. And again, we have all kinds of different types of binder clips. Some people have fancy ones and some people just go buy the cheap ones. The cheap ones work for me. I'm not really picky about what type of binder clips, because a binder clip is so that you can put a whole bunch of stuff together. All right. And then you can also work with all different sizes of rotary cutters. I work with the big one. You'll see me working with the big one. The only time I ever switch over to a little tiny one is if I'm cutting out applique. All right. So that kind of gives us a really good variety of as far as what type of tools we work with. So the other thing that we're going to do that's with this quilt that we haven't done with the rest of them as much is there's so many different color variations that Judelle puts here. And when we first put out this pattern, we actually used 4, and then we switched out the color at one point and we set it up for a rainbow quilt, which used 8 fabrics. And then we go back and we use 2 fabrics, and then sometimes we go back and use 4 fabrics. It's actually very simple, and so one of the things you're going to figure out today by watching me is it really doesn't matter if the pattern's written for 2 colors, 4 colors, 8 colors, as long as it's broken down and divides into whatever you're using evenly. And if you have fabrics cut out of the same fabric number, then it just means you're using more of those, okay? So if I have one fabric that is assigned to fabric A1, then I'm only going to have one fabric. If I have 2 fabrics assigned to A2, then my head needs to say, hey, wait a minute, why do I have 2? Well, I must be using 2 colors. If I have 4 fabrics used for fabric A1, then I'm going to have to let my head start thinking about it and go, hey, I've got 4 colors, and figure out basically how they would actually fit into your pattern, all right? So on this particular quilt, which I just love this colorway, I think this is one of the cutest little quilts. I've already got 2 of them cut out. I keep thinking maybe I'm going to make 4, make it bigger, and then I tell myself, no, I don't need 4 of them, but they're so cute. This is done by Anna. This is the Lighthouse Antique one done on a Stella Maris, and or not Stella Maris, Dear Stella. Stella Maris is, forget that. That's totally different. Dear Stella fabric line and through Timeless Treasure. So this is an actual kit with it's just the fabric, and when I open it up, everything I need to know is right here if I just take the time and read what's on that little label. It says fabric G1. It tells me it's for template G1L and G1R, so I already know what template it's going to be used for. It tells me the template layout sheet number, so when I pair it up, I'm going to know that. And it also tells me 1 5.5-inch strip. And then the next one down there tells me G2, fabric G2, and it gives me all the numbers. And it says template, I'm using 2 different template layout sheets with it. And then it tells me I have to cut that 4 4-inch strips. And so I keep going down this list, and basically I have enough yardage in here to go through and just cut all these strips before I even open up my pattern. It doesn't matter because this is all laid out for us. If you're buying these kits through Quiltworx, this is the way we set them up, okay? So I have to do some sub-cutting on this fabric right here. And then here, this one tells me that I need a 3.5-inch strip. So there's probably just a little bit more on it. I can either cut it down or I can leave it to the size if I only have to have one. But it also tells me what the fabric number of it is, okay? And I'm only using this one time. This only has 1 label. This piece here has 1 label, and it's telling me when I read it that I have to cut 4 4.5-inch strips. So as I go through here, without getting anything out of order, every one of these, I can actually get all of my strips cut before I even open up my pattern, okay? Which is really cool. So now I'm going to show you how I did that. So we're going to just take this back, and let's just set this aside. Okay, and now we're going to grab this bag. So this is what I did is I went through and I just cut all my strips. So now when I open up this bag here, I have all these strips set here, and they're going to have numbers on them. All right, that must be some leftover there. Okay, so this one here is fabric J1 and JD. It's actually a J, A, and B. And actually, so was this one now that I remember that, because I messed up the label on it. Huh? A and C, yeah. I tore the label off of this one accidentally. So anyway, those are my J fabrics. This one is a J fabric. These are J fabrics. This is a J fabric, a J fabric, a J fabric, a J fabric. Oops, that's a G fabric. Okay, so these are my J's. And then this one is a G. So this is G1 fabric, G2, and this is a G3, and there's an A G3B, a G3C, and a G3D, which are all the same fabrics, just in 4 different color options. Underneath here, I have my G4 fabric. And then underneath there, I have a B fabric, which that's my border and binding. So I'm just going to pull those 2 out and put these in here. There's my label that I messed up. So we'll just flip it on there. Okay, so we're going to just set that aside because we're not going to work with that right now. And now, after I get all of my fabrics sorted by color, and then I come over to my pattern, I'm going to start looking through my pattern instructions, and I think this is the one I set up all the information in. Yeah. And I'm going to start reading through my instructions, okay? So I've sorted my fabric, I've sorted there, and we're going to go through some general information. So basically your general information tells you a little bit about what you're getting in your package, and it tells you what pages or papers you get, all right? And this is information that if you make a mistake, you need to come back to us, and it tells you what you need, okay? There's a supply list, and then it, let's start over. General information, this is your, all your newsprint. There's a QR code here, so if you make a mistake, or you think there might be a mistake in your pattern, you need to learn how to use your QR code. Okay, we have the supply list underneath there, which is very generic to everything we have. We have the definition of common terms, which is also very generic to every pattern we have. And then we get over here, we have general techniques. Again, that's generic information that you're going to get in every single pattern. Okay, and then it talks about templates and template layout sheets, which is also very generic. But I'm going to really stress today some information about templates and template layout sheets, because I waste so much time in our classrooms when I'm teaching recutting the templates and template layout sheets for students because they don't cut them out correctly. All right, so when it talks about preparing your foundation papers and your templates and stuff, you need to read this information. So your template layout sheets are always supposed to be cut out on the dark solid line, okay? So if you read that and it says it's a layout sheet, which means there's multiple templates on there that are placed inside of a box of some sort, then you need to cut it out on the line. Don't add a 1/4 of an inch, a 1/2 an inch. All of that's going to cause you problems as you move forward in your instructions, because our fabrics are designed to wear a little bit bigger than our layout sheets. And if you cut the layout sheets too big, then now they don't fit onto your fabric strips, and you start making cutting mistakes because you start thinking that it's in the right position. So always remember that, and it's something you should put in red in your patterns, and then train yourself to trim template layout sheets and templates on the solid line, okay? Your paper piecing template is the same way. That is trimmed on the solid line, but a paper piecing template is a single template. So there's really no difference between that and a template layout sheet, other than a layout sheet is multiple template pieces, okay? Then you're going to get into what we call a T template. And a T template, you can cut it right on the line, that's okay, I normally cut the T-templates about 1/8 of an inch outside the line, and then I layer all my layers under one T-template, and I either pin them onto all those fabrics or I sew the TRP lines, so I'm sewing all the layers together. And then I do my final trim. And I'm going to show you that technique today, all right? And then when you have strip piecing templates, basically a strip piecing template is going to be a template that's long that you use as a different form of piecing. And so you need, there again, those are cut on the line, okay? When you're cutting out your foundation papers are always cut out about 1/8 of an inch outside the line. If you leave 1/2 an inch and 1/8 of an inch and you cut them out with scissors, what you're going to run into with that is when you start doing your stacking process, you can't use one paper as a guide for the next one because everything's a different size. It also makes it very difficult to see whether or not something is fitting under there properly unless you have all your lines marked on them. And so once people get into the habit of working with our paper piecing elements, our papers, then they like to be able to just sit down, start sewing things on. They don't want to mark them. They don't want, and all kinds of things. They're going to start creating shortcuts for themselves. And cutting out those papers right just about 1/8 of an inch is one of the best shortcuts that you'll do because it makes it so you can avoid a lot of other things as well, okay? So we're going to go on to general fabric information. That general fabric information, basically what that's trying to do is explain to you that if I have a fabric A1, then, and I only have one color, I'm only going to have an A1 fabric. If I have an A1 twice, then I'm going to name one of them with a letter A and one with a B. If I have 3 colors for A1, then I'm going to have an A, B, and C. So that's the process of how you think through that if you have multiple colors. All right, so then we have 2 more pages of very general information, and then a little bit of stuff about chain piecing. On this general piecing instructions, these things are all just standardized things that I use when I set up my machine, the type of threads I use. It doesn't mean you have to do it the same way. All machines are going to vary a little bit, and if your machine, if you're more comfortable sewing with a different size needle, go ahead, try those things, and when you're happy with it, move forward with it. If you're having problems because your stitches are coming out, your thread's not tight enough with your paper, that's when you want to start thinking about moving those needle sizes down, changing the stitch length on your machines, because that's what's happening. The other thing you need to be aware of too is a lot of people are actually using excuse me, pre-wound bobbins in their machine. And you need to look at those really careful, because I've had machines in my classrooms where they have the pre-wound bobbin on the bottom, and then they have a heavier thread on the top. And what's happening is that when I go to cut everything, if there's a thread there, you'll pull on it. And that it's not, the pre-wound bobbin is normally a real thin one. The thickness of your thread is really thin, and it pulls right out. So if you're having some tension problems, check that, and that may solve your problem just by winding your the thread on the top into the bottom, because now you're using the same size thread in both places. All right. If you're for general sewing, if you're not having an issue with tension, then don't worry about it. But if you have an issue with tension, that is one of the things you should start looking at, is whether or not you're using pre-wound bobbins, okay? So anyway, the rest of that stuff is basically the same thing as general information. We went over the fabric glues. I want to mention sew sides. We try to mark all the sew sides, but every once in a while we mark something because in CAD it gets lined up with the wrong side, or sometimes we just literally mark it in the wrong place. If that happens, then look for where that seam allowance is and where the 1/4 inch seam allowance is on your template, and that's normally where your sew side is, all right? And if you can't figure it out, you can let us know and we'll help you find the right place, all right? So now we're going to go to our instructions. And the very first thing I want to go through is we're going to read through this really quick, but I have my group J, and right underneath there it tells me how many bags I need for group J. And so in group J it told me that I needed 2 bags. I need one for my J1 pieces and my J2 pieces. And then I have a 3rd bag here that I use a lot because I don't like to put my templates into my bag until after I cut my fabric. So I start out with all of my templates in the bag, all right? And as I'm going through this, I look at what my papers are, I get them cut out, and then I put them into the bags that it tells me and put my templates in one pile. And then we're going to go to our fabric chart. Well, we have all of our fabric sorted out here, so let's just cut some stuff right along the selvage and let's get our fabric set up, all right, before we ever move forward with our cutting. Because if we can get this yardage charts figured out, then we should never have an issue with any of our colors. So I'm just going to show you what I do here. So this one actually says that this is for fabric. This is my J2. This is a J2, so we're going to place these. These are my J3 fabrics, and these are my J1 fabrics. So I have 2 J1 fabrics, excuse me, J1A and J1C. I'm going to put a swatch on it. And then this is my J1B and J1D, which it tells me on there that's what it is. So now I don't have to make that question anymore, answer that question, because I know what those are. And then we get down here where it says J2, and I had 2 fabrics there that were for J2. One of them's a J1B and one's a J1, or J1A and B. J2. J2, yeah. All right, so we have our J2A and our J2B. Now, if your pattern doesn't say that you have an A and a B, you're going to assume that you have an A and B if you have 2 colors, all right? And you just have to decide which is which, all right? So we have those in. And then I have a J3. Now, these instructions are assigned to 4 different colors. All we have to do is just, well, my fabric J3A is white. Well, my fabric J3B is white. My JC3 is white. And my J3D is white. So it doesn't change anything as far as the cutting is concerned, because it's telling me that I have the ability to have multiple fabrics sit there, as well as even if you only had 1 color, you would only have multiple fabric. You could add multiple fabrics, all right?
And another thing I want to say about this really quick is I labeled those so that all of the A fabrics sew together and all of the B fabrics sew together. And if there's a C and a D, then it's the A and the C fabrics. They sew together, and the B and the D fabrics all sew together. So you might have a B and then you sew a D fabric to it. But I labeled those so that they sewed together as a group.
Yeah.
That way you weren't wondering, well, which color A goes with which color B goes with which color C, for example. So just as a clarification on that.
Okay. So then I want you to realize that right underneath there, and so many people don't look at this, they just skip over it, but you don't want to skip over it because that's your color layout. It's telling you where all of the fabrics that are on that fabric chart, what position they are in there. So if you don't have Quiltster, you don't want to use Quiltster, it's telling you what's there, okay? And yes, and then they have the big picture of all the pieces on the back, that page 15, where this only has the pieces that we're using in this element. Okay, so always remember that. So now I have my fabric samples here. I have a color layout here. And then the next thing you want to do is come down here, fabric J1A through J1D. And so I have 4 colors that it's telling me I'm going to be using there. And so I'm going to read my instructions and I put my little swatches there. Okay, and I usually put them in order. So if I have 4 colors, whatever is the A color is going to be on the top and the 4th color is going to be on the bottom. And so I want to keep that in order. So I put a little swatch there, and then I come over here, and this one is fabric J2, and it only says J2 in my instructions, so it's assuming that all of them are the same. But we gave you 2 of those colors, so I put both of them, and I numbered them, which one was A and which one was B, according to what was on our labels. Okay.
I also want to mention one more thing about J1. In the original pattern, it says you need 1 strip for each of the 4 colors, but since we only used 2 colors, you actually share that strip because there's plenty of fabric on that strip to cut your A1A and your A1C fabrics.
So we only had 1 strip of each one.
Right.
Yeah.
So you only need 1 strip. So if that was confusing for anybody, the thing is you could get all the pieces out of 1 strip, so there was no reason to give you more than that.
Yeah, I kind of remember going through that. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so then when I get down to my fabric J3, I put my fabric swatch there too, all right? So I like to put swatches throughout my instructions as I'm going before I start doing any cutting, because then it keeps me, when I start doing my cutting, I know what those fabric swatches are that are there, okay? And it really works. And so I did the same thing over here with my G's, all right? So I have everything done. I have my bags made. So what I'm gonna do right now is, because I have my bags made, I cut my strips, I'm actually gonna take and put my A pieces with my A group and all of the G fabrics with my G group. And then we're just going to work through each one of these patterns. So let's go ahead, and we have all of these in order with the A on the top, okay? And we're going to grab our templates here, and I have them all in order. And then the other thing I want to show you that I've done, and this works really good, is, remember I have the little color layout here that tells me what my fabric colors are? Well, all I did is I actually went up there and I read those numbers, and then I went to my fabric chart, grabbed a little swatch, and put my swatches where those colors go. So now I know I'm making 4 that are these 3 colors, that black and white and orange, and this one is yellow, white, and black. So when I'm making them, I'll be able to make sure that it's stacked in that order. The other thing you can do is actually write whether this is an A fabric or a B fabric. But once you get this set up, it's pretty hard to go wrong at that point, right? And then we did the same thing over here with the J's. We put the little swatches on those papers, okay? So now we're going to take this and because we have, let me get a drink of water. I'm just getting over some cold stuff last week. So This one here, this fabric and this fabric, these are my A, C, and A, B, C, and D is what those are, okay? And it also tells me that it uses J1-10 template. So if I look at that, I have a J1-10 template, and it's telling me that I have to have these, and I know I have to have 4 of each. So we're just going to take that, and we're going to take our paper clips, and we're going to clip that template onto it. Then we're going to go to our next group here, which is fabric J2. It tells me that fabric J2 have template layout sheet number 3 and 4 in the instructions. If I look at my labels, it says template layout sheet number 3 and 4, template layout sheet number 3 and 4. So that means that this is my template layout sheet number 3 and 4. These go with this fabric. And then we have the last one is template layout sheet number 1 and 2. And this one is number 2, and this one is number 1. And those go on my next group of fabrics, the J3 fabrics. So what I just did there is I have all my templates paired up to my fabrics, and I don't have to worry about picking up the wrong fabric and cutting it in correctly now. So we can just basically, I have no template layout sheets or templates left over, so I've used everything I have is paired up. So now I'm going to show you, I'm going to look at the way the picture is, and in the picture, in the cutting instructions, I know for a fact that I have to have 4 and 4 without even reading anything, because I have 2 colors and I have to make 8 pieces. So I'm going to look at this picture, and it's telling me that I have to actually overlap those just a little bit. So let's just take this. We're going to put our yellow on the bottom. And since we have 2 colors before I start, or we have basically 4, I'm going to actually cut this in half. Right like that. And then we're going to take the next one, and we're going to cut that one in half. And then we're going to layer these. We're going to take this one. My yellow is on the bottom. And then we have a black. And I'm going to stack them at the end where I cut. I'm going to go like this. And then we're going to take another yellow. And let's move this down here. And then we're going to take our black. And then I'm going to take this template. And I'm just going to lay it on there like that. Now I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to bring this over and line it up there. So I have plenty of fabric. Give myself a little bit of extra room. Once I get that, now I'm going to cut all 4 of those pieces, basically the same size. Now this is one of those places where if I'd had all that extra fabric or paper and I hadn't trimmed these down, I wouldn't have been able to get those to cover properly. Okay. So now we're going to take and put this piece on there for now. And throw those away. Then we're going to go to the next one. And I'm going to look at the way this tells me, because I have several pieces, and my A fabric is going to be on the top. It says to stack 8 4.5 inch by 42 inch strips from fabric J2 onto your cutting table. So we're going to actually take all of these. We should have 8 of them. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have 4. Then we're going to take this group, and we're going to take, there's 1, and all my strips are not perfectly sized, so what I'm going to do is line them up along the top edge. And then we're going to take this one, and then we're going to take this one, and then we're going to take that one. So we have A on the top for us, right? Now my picture tells me to put template layout sheet number 4, which is this one, in the first location. So what I want to do is make sure I get rid of all that salvage there. All right, that did it. And if I wanted, if I was going to flip this, I would put a little bit of repositionable glue on the back of this, but I don't have to flip it because I only need 8 pieces, and I'm getting 4 from each color. So all I'm going to do is just cut like that, and then we're going to grab our paper clips, and I'm going to put a clip on every one of these sections. So I have all these different section numbers, and I'm just going to trim these all kind of to the same size on this edge. And we're going to put a template there. Paper clip. So now I have a paper clip on each one of those pieces. And then we're going to take this one, and I'm going to have to double check this one. This one says to start it down on this end, which I can, but I want to double check my fabrics and make sure that I have them all straight down here, because they're all just a little bit different length, and I don't want any salvage, so we're going to go a little bit further with it. There we go. And then we're going to take that piece, just grab some paper clips, clip it in place. I like to clip before I cut, because then I don't have all of my pieces trying to pick them up and I don't miss any of them. So let's go ahead and we're going to cut this one. And then we're going to slip this back inside of our template bag, because if I keep them back in with all of my stuff, then I don't have to sort through a whole bunch of scraps. in a box to figure out if I have to correct something. And then I'm going to just kind of clean this edge off here. Paper clips. Okay, so I have those cut. So now we're going to jump down here. Instead of cutting everything out, I like to wait until I'm ready to actually start doing the paper piecing and then go back and slice through all of the lines at that time. That way, if I have to set it, put it away, it's going to lay down in my bag a lot nicer without those being cut into 40 pieces. So this is my fabric A. Let's see, we want to start with the one D on the bottom. So if you guys had different colors, you would want your D on the bottom and you would stack them in reverse order. And I'm just going to move all those labels. Since we only have one color, it makes no difference. Okay. So we're going to look at the way this is set up. It's telling me here that I want my template layout sheet number 2, and I have to actually, if I look at my pictures and read my instructions, it's telling me I have to have 4 pieces that match this, okay, size. So we're going to take this one. So I have 4 layers of fabric. I have a 5-inch strip. So it's telling me to cut 4 fabric pieces and then to rotate the template. The dog's barking. I guess we'll let him out. So this is where I would actually come in here and put just a touch of repositionable glue. And since I have areas there, these are scrap areas, I put my glue here rather than running it all the way through it.
I was showing the spot on the instructions when that was done.
Okay, so this is where I was saying I have to cut this and flip it. And I put the repositionable glue on the back side of the scrap areas. So now we're going to just take this, and that gives me 4 pieces. And what it's telling me is to do 8 pieces. So I'm going to grab my starch pen, because see these folds that I have in here? If I take this starch pen, I can actually get rid of all those creases. Just rubbing that on there like that. It just flattens out your creases. It's fabulous. I have spent most of my life avoiding the middle of the fabric until I started using the Easy Press pins. And then we're going to take this, and then we're going to take this one. Now I'm just going to take this piece and we're going to flip it over. And now we have 8 layers under there. Now let's clip them all together. And that's going to go here. And then this leftover, I have to do the same thing with. I have to take this, cut this piece, and then we're going to rotate it and get the next piece. So I'm going to put a little bit of repositionable glue right on this end to kind of hold it in place. Like that. Then we're going to cut. And then we're going to flip it. That put 8 pieces underneath it. Paper clip. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to sort these out and put them in the bags that they go in. Okay, so we're going to go back and to J1, the fabric J1, which were these pieces. And if I come all the way down here, it says that goes into bag J1, which these will go with this. So we're going to slip that in there like that. And then we're going to go up here to fabric J2, which that was my black and orange fabric. And this is separated, it looks like, into 2 different bags. So we want to find the pieces that go with unit J1. This is a J1 group right here. So that's going to go into this bag. So see how much easier it is to separate these out before I start cutting them apart. And then this piece right here says it's for J2. So the one thing I want to do is just check all the templates before I put it away, because every once in a while we'll sneak a template onto another one because we can't, it has to be reversed and to get it to lay together. But these all say J2, so I'm just fine there. So this is going to go into this bag. Okay. And now we have, this one is a J2, and these all say J2 template. So this one goes with my J2. And this one, J1, 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 and J1, so that goes with my J1. So, what's nice?
Someone on YouTube just commented, I like it when cutting is that easy. It's just not always that easy.
It is when you get used to organizing yourself in that manner, but you do have to make a few of them. And I'll tell you, taking a class with somebody that teaches this organization is a nice thing too. And there are some really nice online instructors out there that teach organization. But once you get used to the whole concept of how it goes together, it makes it easy, because now I can just set these apart and I can come back in a week and just pick up a bag and make the pieces in that bag or this bag. And so anyway, those are all done. This is my leftover fabric right here, okay? Now, when I'm ready to cut these out, basically, I'm going to just pull a piece here, and it's going to tell me, basically, you're going to look for your cut lines. This is cut line 1, cut line 2, and then cut line 3, and then we'd come back to find cut line 4, 5, and 6. So follow your cut lines, because your cut lines have to be cut in the order so that they don't overlap each other, okay? I already have a couple pieces set up, on these, I'm just going to show you guys how to make one of each one of these. So actually, so when I look at these, I had everything cut. These are my papers. Those are J1 papers. This one is my very last section template. And then it goes section 9. It tells me that that's my section 9. This one is 8. I put all my sew sides together. This is 7. This is 6. This is for section 5, section 4, section 3, section 2, and section 1. So the other thing I did here is I have these in order. So I'm going to be starting with this foundation paper because I have all of my orange on the top. So if I was making 8 of these, I'd have 4 of the yellows on the top or orange on the top and 4 blacks on the bottom. And then I would number my papers 1 through 8, which would be 1 through 4 was for the orange, and 5 through 8 is for the black. The other thing you can actually do is put a swatch on every single paper, which is a lot of extra time. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you the chain piecing process, but we're only going to do 2 of them. And then when I get done, I'm going to show you how to trim them. So I have a piece here to trim. And about what time is it? 2:15. 2:15?
Yeah, an hour and 45.
Yeah, we're in good shape. All right, we'll just set these out of the way since we're not going to use those. So before I start paper piecing, I like to get rid of my swatches, okay? But I like to get the first piece in place. When you're working with something like this, it's kind of hard to see where to put that very first piece. But if you have a light table will tell you exactly where it fits underneath there, okay? So I'm going to find, this is my section 2. So my white fabric are for my spikes. And my black fabric goes up there. And we're going to put this one in first. All right. Because that's the one on the top. Now what I want to do is figure out how does this piece fit underneath there. And because I don't have a light table with me, and I would accept that it glares on here, I'm just going to hold this up to the light. And I can see exactly where that template's going to fit by just setting it up like this, okay? And so I have that matched up. And once I know that, then I can take this piece, flip it over, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue just on the back side of section 1, my repositionable. I don't want to get it over the seam allowances or anything. It's only under section 1. And then I'm going to put it on there like that. And then we're going to take the next piece and we're going to flip the black over. And we're going to do the same exact thing. So now we have the first fabric on each one of those. And I usually will just save my template pieces as we're sewing. So we're done with the repositionable glue. So now we're going to take our fold template here. And we're basically done with these. So let's get them out of the way. We're going to get this stuff out of the way. Because I like a clean table when I start paper piecing. I don't like a whole bunch of stuff on it. All right, so let's start the process. So we're going to place this on the solid line marked line 1. We're going to fold it back put the add a quarter ruler on there, and we're going to trim. Okay, and then I'm going to set this off to the side. We would do 4 just like that, and then we would place this on the solid line, put the add a quarter ruler, trim, and stack. And now we would have 4 of each combination there. Now we're going to take fabric J2, and I have my sew side right here, okay? So to find out where this piece fits, sometimes that's difficult for people. And again, if I had a light table, I could put this right on my light table and I could see through all of my layers, and it would just be really easy. And that's why we have those little tiny light tables that people set right by the machines, and they can do a little bit of cutting on them. Plus, they can see every step that they go, and they know exactly where they're going to position it. If I look at my template, my sew side, it shows me exactly where the template fits on that piece. So what I have to do is find where that section is on my foundation paper. And the way we're going to do it today is I'm going to actually use this highlighter, and I'm going to place that right along that line 2 dash line, and then we're going to do this one and this one. Okay, we're also going to get a black pen because we're going to fold this back, and you should do this on every one of them along this star piece, and you're going to crease it, and you're just going to draw a line there, because that's going to tell us how everything's fitting on here. And we're going to do that with each one of the pieces as we go. So now I can actually take and fold along this line, or I can use my black marker and mark that line. So if I did that, I'm not one that's real fond of the black marker, but if I do that, now I can see, basically you guys can see it better too because of the light. My highlighter doesn't show up, so we'll just use the black marker. Now I can see exactly where that section piece is. So all I have to do now is pick this up and make sure that that fabric sits underneath that section. Okay? So I needed to be down to here. Here's my piece. I have about a 1/2 inch here, and I have the excess over there. Once I know that, I can take the next piece. I don't even have to mark this one. All I have to do is just copy it. And I can see that I'm on down there at the bottom. And so before we start, I am going to actually crease this line, because when I was making them the other day, I was making mistakes because I did not mark that line. All right, so now I can see exactly where that's got to go. As long as my fabric is past that black line, I'm in good shape. All right, so now I'm going to take my fabric glue pen, and I really like to use the glue pen, and we just lift the fabric, put a little bit of dab of glue on both pieces. If the light is on the bottom, I want to set that dark fabric back just a little bit to make sure I don't end up with a shadow. So when I look at this, I have a little tiny, about a 32nd of an inch of that white fabric is showing past the black, and the same with the orange, and that way I get rid of the shadow effect. Okay, so we're going to pick this up. We're going to go to our machine, and I'm going to sew with the paper sticking out. So I'm going to lift it up, bring it over here, and we're going to sew on line 1. I'm going to place it, and I'm going to downsize my stitch length to about a 1.8 on this little machine, and we're going to start sewing. I'm going to sew until I cross the dashed line that is marked right next to line 2. Okay, and now we're going to pick up the next piece. We're going to flip the paper open and bring my needle up, slide this back, and we're going to start the next one. If you have a machine with a thread cutter with these really odd shaped long pieces like that, it's easier to just cut your thread with the thread cutter. All right, so we have both of those pieces on there. And grab our little scissors here or a rotary cutter, and we're going to separate them. Okay, so we have both pieces, and it doesn't look like they're doing much of anything, but when I fold it back, it actually covers all of that area. Okay, so let's go ahead and press. Normally, I would just take this and I would run that right along that line. And then open that up. Okay. I don't necessarily trust the black markers to never come off with heat and water, because sometimes they do. All right. So we're going to take this, and I'm going to find my cut line 2. And it's going to go this full length here. So I'm going to take this piece and place it on line 2. And we're going to fold it back. And we're going to tear the fabric. And it's going to tear a hole in the paper, but that's okay. If your stitch length is too loose, it may tear a great big hole and pull that whole paper out there. So that's a sign of too big of a stitch length. If that happens to you, just downsize that stitch a little bit and then it'll stop happening. We're going to trim. We're going to set it off to the side, and then we're going to take the next piece. And so right there, I tore it all the way. I'm just going to flip it back there just a little bit and trim. So I have my yellow on the top now, and we're going to grab the next piece. And we're just going to hurry through these now. So this piece right here, so this piece is actually going to line up right along this edge of this paper here. And so if I need to figure out where it is, I'll just come over and I'll fold on the dashed line that's right along line 3. And when I do that, that tells me, so we'll just mark that. There you go. So that is my section 3. So I just have to make sure I have fabric underneath that, where that black mark is right there. Okay. So we're going to take the next piece right there, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. Okay. I don't have to continue marking, because once I get the first piece placed, the rest of them are going to just follow along. And I'm going to quickly pick these up, the seams, and put a little bit of glue underneath those to hold those in place. With my dark fabric on the bottom, I don't have to worry about any shadow. So I'm just going to line that up the best it'll line up. We're going to open it up. We're going to put it on line 2, and we're going to sew we're going to stitch it. And I'm going to sew all the way down until I cross the dashed line on line 3. So you can kind of tell when you're doing this where you need to cross. So this is going to go all the way down to the bottom. And I'm actually crossing line 3 and stopping just past the dashed line along line 3. And then we're going to press it. Now, I like to press at my iron, but on occasion I do finger pressing, which is fine, but I'm going to press these really quick. And then we're going to do this again. Okay. And we're on the white fabric, so let's put our white fabric on there. All I need to do when I'm looking at this is make sure that where this line is, that I have fabric just past that line. So when I place that piece on there, it's really quick and easy to put it on because of this line that I marked. And now from here, these are just going to go along really quick. And I don't think I have to sew the whole thing for you guys, because there's a lot of better things I could teach you. And we have a ton of video out there. And I even think there's video on this piece already out there with all the steps on it as well. Okay, so I just want to touch bases on a couple things. So let's press this really quick. All right. So when I get all of the paper piecing done on these pieces, we're going to have to grab our fold template. What did I do with the fold template? Oh, there it is. We're going to take this down here, and you're going to have all these lines that are going to come across. You're going to have to individually tear each one, the paper away from each one of those lines, okay, as you go down, and get it to lay, all your fabrics to lay flat before you can trim and add the last section on there, all right? So just as you're going, just fold it back and tear the fabric away on that one and then on this one, and pretty soon they'll all lay down for you. And then you can trim and add the last piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take these and clip them all back together and put them back in their bag. Just set it right to the side there, okay? And we have a whole bunch of them on the wall that I'll show you in just a minute. Now what I want to do is go over the trimming on these, okay? So this is the other side. This is the J2 unit. And when I get done, I'm going to look at it, and this has some TRP lines. So the purpose of these TRP lines is to help you match it up and make sure that all of the center pieces match up. So you want to pay attention to the TRP lines on the on these papers. After I sew the TRP lines, I just cut the threads on both sides so I don't sew all of the dangling threads into my seams. And now we're going to take the ruler, and I'm going to use this ruler right here, and we're going to lay it on here. And in the process of paper piecing, You're going to find sometimes that the ruler doesn't lay perfectly straight with it. If it doesn't, just kind of pull back on the fabric and straighten it up a little bit, because once the papers are taken off, it's going to come off just fine. And I'm going to get this moved over just a touch. I'm pretty accurate with my cutting. I don't add excess. I don't cut off too much of the black line. I like it to be right at the black line when I trim, okay? And I know a lot of people will come and trim outside the black line. You really should not do that, because if you're adding a 32nd of an inch, your quilt's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and it needs to be cut on the line to match the paper. And then we're going to take this, we're going to cut the smart corner there, and then we're going to take this piece and we're going to line it up. I'm going to have to cut part of this and then just readjust just a little bit. Okay. And then we're going to cut on this one. And we'll cut here. Okay. So we have our pieces cut, all right? And I usually leave the paper on until I'm ready to assemble. And once I get this on the wall and ready to assemble, then I start pulling the papers off as I go. And that keeps me from getting my pieces in the wrong place. On this, it's pretty hard to get them in the wrong place, but on some quilts, it's hard to tell which pieces go where. So we're going to put this on the wall. Judelle, you want to show them what I have on the wall? So there we go. We're on a pins. So do you have the picture over here? Yep. So you can see how we have different colors around here. And then we have the black out here, and it's just every other color as you put that together. So now we're going to come in here and we're going to start going to the G group, all right? Oh, so, okay. So on the G group, we have, again, all of our papers. So our templates are in this bag, and then we have an L and an R bag here, all right? If you want to make them both at the same time, you can. But one of the things that you need to pay attention to is the way the colors are on your spikes, all right? So when you're looking at a picture, you're normally looking at the finished piece. When you're looking at your foundation papers, you're looking at the back side of the quilt. So if you have a photo that you're following, instead of Quiltster, basically what you're going to do is you're going to put your colors on backwards, which is not really that big of a deal. But as you're sewing, if you're following and marking all your instructions off, you're going to notice that your numbers aren't matching up, okay? So I'm going to grab a couple of these that are done. So this is the front side of my quilt. This is the back side. So notice how all of my fabrics are in different locations. So if you lay down and you're looking at a picture and you match up all your little swatches, then you're going to mirror image that, okay? So when you're looking at the color layouts that are in your instruction, so on page 10, there's a color layout for the way those colors are set up here. These colors are paired up to pair up to the foundation paper, all right? So if you match this color layout that's here on the foundation paper, then that's going to put everything in the order in which you set it up. If you match the back side layout to those, then it's going to be opposite. Okay, so when you're putting the swatches on the foundation paper, make sure you're looking for one that says you're looking at a backside view. Otherwise, you have to reverse it in your head. If your pattern doesn't have a backside view in there, you need to reverse it in your head. Okay, so my phone's ringing and it's not supposed to be. It just shut off.
I think it's Carson.
Okay. So if I flip these over, now everything's going to end up in the right color order. So that's what I wanted to show you guys. Now then the other thing I did here is I went through my template layout sheets after I had my color order, and I found my layout sheets and I put swatches on those as well. So these are my background pieces and these are the spikes. Okay, so I have to follow the instructions, and you guys can do that. I don't need to go through the cutting on this one again for you. All right, so I just want you guys to know that those are going to be different that way. So we're going to put these over here, and I'm going to put these back and slip them all back together and put them in my bag. And then I did the same thing. So we have this little one here ready to go. And then we did the same thing with these templates. So I put a fabric swatch. So these are my little ones. So I have a white swatch on there, and these are the big ones. Okay, but something I want to bring to your attention is when we talk about template layout sheets. We also have what we call a T template layout sheet, but it still has a layout sheet number, okay? But normally, if it's a T template, you're gonna find these big X or checkerboard boxes around them. That's not a solid box. If you see these big checkerboard dashed lines around a group of templates, and it says T template layout sheet number 5, that means just cut the whole thing out. And what we've done is we've placed all of these as close as they can be placed. All you have to do is put your layers of fabric underneath it, and then you cut them out after that, and it puts everything on the grain line the way it's supposed to be. Because on occasion we'll twist the grain line on some of our T templates where it might need to go this way versus across because of diagonal issues. Okay, so pay attention to that. Whenever you see a big dashed line, that's a template layout sheet for your T templates. All right, so I have these ready to cut out, and I'm going to show you how we work with those. I'll slip this back inside the bag there. All right, so I have 4 templates. It's a T template. What I want to do is cut right on that line. So right before I'm ready to make these units, I'm going to actually cut that out. So what I'm going to do is just cut out. I'm going to come over here, and I put a little bit of repositionable glue on these so that they don't slip. And that's what, whenever I'm doing a T template, I like to put just a touch of glue on the back side of it, and it does go onto the right side of the fabric, but it keeps my papers from slipping on me, so I can actually do a cut. The other thing is, if it has a paper clip on it, I can actually take in my add a quarter ruler, and that paper clip is the same height as my little lip on my add a quarter ruler, so I can get my ruler to lay flat on there. And then we're going to cut those apart. So we're going to take this one.
So I had a quick question. Someone
Okay.
asked, what are we doing the quilt that's behind you? So this is a new person.
No.
We're actually doing a smaller design. So I'm going to switch the screen over to the other
Wall.
view here just for a second. We're doing this small design here. The one behind her though is called All Hands on Deck. And that's one of our newest publications. In fact, we published it just last week. So it's done out of all Tim Holtz fabrics. It's part of the new Mariner's Compass Mixer series. For those of you who are doing the large box program, we did that with a mixer as well, where we have a lot of blocks that are designed that are the same size and shape. And then we mix and match them and can create a lot of different quilts. But that one's called All Hands on Deck. It's a little bit more in depth than the video we're doing today. But hopefully we're going to start teaching you guys all the techniques that you need in order to make a quilt like that. That's our goal here.
Pretty close. Okay, I'm going to show you really quick the leaf ruler, and actually I want for this one, I want this ruler. I'm not going to pull the paper off of it, but we're going to take this and I'm going to lay that right down. And this is actually called our curved diamond ruler. And it pretty much just lays right onto that piece right there on that curve. So I've got my first template piece cut, and then we're going to cut another one. I don't need to cut them all out for the next demo. I just need a couple. And before I pull that paper clip off, I'm going to put another one on there to hold that in position. And then we'll just move this down. And then we'll cut the next piece like this. And now I needed a right piece. And I cut out 2 left pieces. So we're going to cut one more. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well cut both of them for you. So when I'm doing templates like this where I have straight lines and curved lines, I like to go through and get as many of my straight lines cut as possible. And then I come back and I do the curved lines. So we're just going to put another paper clip on there and then take that off. And then we'll cut. There we go. So when you're using our curved rulers, most of our curves in our pattern are based off the same different size radius, and so all you have to do, depending on how big that curve is just adjust the ruler just a little bit. So I can use this radius on a lot of different patterns, and which makes it so I can use the ruler on a lot of different patterns as well. Okay, so there's our left pieces and our right pieces. And now we're going to do the background pieces. Get rid of all of this. Okay, so these pieces, one that goes here, and then this one's going to go like that. And we're going to show you how to do the curved piecing in just a little bit. Now, this is another set of T-templates. I have 4 layers of fabric under here. I haven't trimmed anything off, but you're going to notice how cottons start fraying really fast. And so I like to, that's why I don't like to cut them until I'm ready to actually start assembling them. There's some TRP lines on here, okay? So what I do is I just take the whole sheet and I actually sewed the TRP line through all 4 layers of my fabric. Now my paper is attached. I don't have to worry about it moving on me, and I can start cutting each one of these. This doesn't have a TRP and this one doesn't either. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my rulers here. And on this one, let's go ahead and separate this. I'm going to have to cut this one first. So these are pretty close cuts. So we're going to fold that fabric back. And then I'm going to grab and I'm going to cut along this straight line. And then I'm going to cut this straight line. And I'm going to flip it over here, and I'm going to cut this straight line. And then we're going to cut that smart corner right there. And now we're going to take our curved ruler, and we're going to separate that piece off. All right, so I have those 4 pieces and they're sewn together. Now I can get in there and I can cut this piece. And then we're going to cut the straight edge on this one. And before I go any further, I'm going to actually change the location of my paper clip. And I'm going to cut the top of this. And now I'm going to use my curved ruler here. All right. So I have a nice clean cut for that piece. Now we're going to come in and let's go ahead and cut this piece and separate those 2. Okay. Let's put a paper clip along this edge here, and then we're going to move this paper clip. Now I'm going to take this Okay. So now I'm going to change my paper clips again. So moving those paper clips around keeps that fabric from shifting underneath there as you're trying to get all of these edges cut. So isn't this it's a nice way to cut several layers of tea templates, and they're all cut to the same size, so you're not using a paper template to just cut through one piece at a time by doing it this way. So we're going to take this and let's cut this size right here, and then I'm going to cut this little edge right here, and then I'm going to add another paper clip. Then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move it over here, and we're going to cut the smart corner off, and we're going to cut that straight edge. Okay, and then we're going to use our curved ruler. All of my pieces are the same exact size of the paper, and I didn't have to keep cutting and cutting and cutting them over and over again, and they're all perfectly cut. So these papers are actually sewn together with that TRP line, and I need to get that TRP line marked on each one of my layers of fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come in here and I'm going to fold the fabric back, and I'm going to mark that. I have a little pencil in here that erases off, so all I have to do is pull the fabric and put that mark in there. If I don't want that mark on the front side, I can do this from the back side as well, which I'm going to do it on both sides because I like these TRP lines to show up on both sides. So I'm going to mark that one. Then I'm going to fold it back again, mark it here, so that that line shows up on both of my pieces, on the front and the back. If I was using a batik, I probably wouldn't even have to mark those pieces, because as soon as I pull that TRP line, it's going to leave some holes there where it was stitched on the batiks. When you're working with a cotton, you're going to have to mark those areas. I normally don't go back and re-sew them because there's really no reason to, because we're not gonna pull this paper away until we're actually ready to sew it. And since these are our final ones, TRPs, we're just going to leave it there. I'm going to show you where these pieces fit on the wall. And there we go. Okay. So let's take these and put them in place up here on the wall. Let's grab some paper or some pins, and these little pieces are going to go like this. So your paper is your front side. So if you're working with batiks, keep the paper on, because that's going to tell you what the front side of your fabric is. So that piece goes on there like that. And this is my G2R, and it's going to go in here like this. And this one's going to go on there like that. Okay? So at this point, I would actually take all of my template pieces that are the same. So that's 3. And I would take those, and they go with that group. And then I'd take 1, 2, and 3. And then these are going to go with these pieces. And then this one is going to go here. And this one and this one are going to go here. So there's 1, 2, I have 3, 4 of those. So I have a few more that I have to actually put together, but this is basically the way I set up my quilts so that I know which pieces I'm sewing. This is a G1L. It's going to go right here. And then this one is a G1L, and it goes in that location. So this piece goes with the G1L here. That gives me 1, 2, 3. I'm supposed to have 4, but I haven't made them all. And then these are my G1Rs, and they go here. And then this one goes here. Okay, and this piece is going to be, I have 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4 here. All right, so what I'm going to do is take one of these sections down. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. We'll take this section down right here. And we're going to go over some curved piecing, so you can move it back now. And I'm not going to show you the paper piecing for these because it's just like the other paper piecing, but I am going to grab this group, and this group, and then we're going to grab this. Okay. So if you look at your assembly process, it basically on page 12 of your pattern is exactly what I just showed you on the wall, is the layout of how all of those pieces are set up, okay? And then you're going to start, if you follow through, on page 13, it tells you which are the first pieces to go together. And so what it's telling me here is these 3 pieces have to be sewn together. So let's go ahead and sew one of those together. So what we have to do is complete the assembly on these pieces right here, and it tells you that's on page 12. So we're going to do the GR piece, okay? So the first thing we want to do is let's take one of these off of our stack. And if I was doing this for myself, I'd do all 4 at the same time. We're going to grab our glue pen. And I'm actually going to put a little bit of glue, and I have a smart corner, and that's going to fit on there just like that, right up along that edge. Okay, so it's at an angle, and then I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to line this edge right up with that. And we want to grab a pan really quick. And I'm going to put a pin down here along that edge, so this is perfectly straight down here. Now all I have to do is just take where I put the rest of that glue and just put that in place. Now these are going to sew together really easy, so we shouldn't have to worry about any clipping or anything. But I do want to bring your attention to something. If you have a piece where these are starting, if your stitches aren't tight enough and these stitches are backing off, here's a great trick. If you'll actually just lift your seam and put a touch of glue underneath there, and then open it up between the seam, put a touch of glue, you'll avoid all of those pieces pulling apart as you're doing your curved piecing. on something that's been pieced like that. That glues that thread right there, and it's not going to come apart. So I like to do this even when it's not, I'm not worried about it. So right here, this is where I'm going to start sewing. And this piece is just kind of flipping loose here. And I can actually sew right over it. But if I don't want all that extra, I can get rid of 2 layers of fabric right there at the beginning of that seam by folding that back. And I can basically trim that as if that's a dog ear. And now when I start sewing, and that's going to press a lot better for me. So that's what I did. Now I'm going to grab some paper really quick out of the garbage. And we're going to cut some little starter pieces of paper as we're doing this curved piecing. And I'm going to start sewing on my paper. So I'm going to get 3 or 4 stitches started there. And if I'm doing a curve, I normally put my needle down. So I want it to start down. We're going to lift the pressure foot, and then we're going to put that piece right underneath the pressure foot, set it at 1/4 of an inch, and then I just start sewing. And now I don't have to worry about my feed dogs pulling that very first part of my curved seam where those smart corners are. It's not going to pull it down into the feed dogs. And then we're just going to sew a curve. And if I was doing this myself, I would have every one of these in a line, and I would just chain the whole thing together. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, and we're going to just rip the paper off. I'm going to cut my threads right at the end so I don't have to deal with all those threads, and then finish pulling the paper off. Okay, and there's my first curved seam. And in my instructions, it's going to tell me which way to press. And it looks like these are set up for stacked seams. And because I'm doing some cottons, I'm going to press it differently. I'm going to actually set mine up for opposing seams on this. And so what I'll do is I'll come into my instructions and I'll look at it and go, all of my arrows are pointed up. So I'm just going to put a circle on every other one, and those I'm going to press the other direction. And now I just set myself up for stacked seams. And when I assemble the whole quilt, I'll have stacked seams. If I was working with batiks, I would leave them as stacked seams because they lay a lot nicer, and it makes it so you can do a really nice in the ditch quilting line with your long arms, where when you're doing stacks or opposing seams, you're on one side of this seam and then the other side of the seam, so you're constantly switching out. So most people prefer to stay on one side. That way they can do it with one color. All right, so I'm going to actually take this and I'm going to press this one in. It says to press it up. I'm going to press it down for opposing seams for me. And we're just going to take my iron and I'm going to get that pressed really nice. And I'm going to put a little bit of starch right on that seam along the curve to make that really, really lay flat. Okay. Now we're going to take this piece and we're going to grab a seam ripper here and I'm going to pull out my TRP lines. And then I'm going to pull the bottom piece off and then put that back up in place. And that piece is going to go on to here. I have a smart corner here, so let's start right here. And I'm going to put a couple pins along this edge here and line that up. That keeps my pieces straight, and it keeps me from veering off when I start to glue everything in place. And I'm going to start gluing on this end. I'm going to run my glue right along all the way back to the other side where the smart corner is. And then we're just going to gather this. So it's just a light gather ruffle. And it should come out right on the edge there. And if it doesn't, you're going to make it match, and then you're going to ease that in, because this is a really light cotton, and it's going to move, and so it's going to stretch. So I'm just going to take a little bit more glue and get that. And if it seems too big, I just take my finger and pull it back as if I was gathering it towards me, and that'll ease that in. Now I don't have to worry about it stretching or anything. And I'll go just a little bit further. My glue's drying fast on me. All right, so I'll pick that up, and I'm gonna grab a little piece of paper, start sewing on my paper, and then we're gonna lift our pressure foot, and we're gonna do a 1/4 inch seam allowance.
All right, someone asked which way was better for batiks for pressing. They couldn't write fast enough. So if you're using batiks, just follow the directions in the pattern. So let me switch to that view here real quick. So everything's going the same direction. So if you see these arrows, they're all pointing up. So when you're using batiks, Judy a lot of times recommends having those pieces stacked. And so that means this seam is going the same direction as the one that you'll sew next to it. And then over here on the outside edge, which she just sewed, you would also press those all the way up. So she's pressing them alternating, so she gets a little interlocking seam at that location right there and right here.
Yeah. So I'm going to do opposing seams on both sides. First of all, I'm going to press it flat. And then we're going to take this.
And I didn't set the cameras up today to get a good view of the pressing
iron
station. So anyway, we wanted to be able to look at the wall on the other side. So I guess we need more cameras, which we've been saying for a little while, but we haven't bought them yet. Things are expensive. It's on our list. That's something we need to do.
All right. So what I did to get that to press is I actually ran this, acorn starch pen right along that seam, and then I pressed it so it's laying really nice and flat for me right there. Okay, so now I have one section done, and then that section's going to go onto it. And then we're going to come over and do this section. But since I have this one done, I'm going to actually come over here and add this piece. So I'm going to jump over to page 13 where it tells me to put that on. Okay, so we're going to take this, and it's going to lay right on there, and that's got a smart corner. So this doesn't come all the way up to the edge. It actually stops at that smart corner right there. Okay, so you don't stretch this all the way up to the top. You're going to match up that smart corner. The other thing I want to show you is on this piece, and you guys are going to have this, there's a big seam here, and that comes right up in there. This is another time when I'll take that seam and I'll fold it back. So I'll have these big dog ears like that, and then I'll just come in here and I'll trim that dog ear off like that. And what that did is it just removed 4 layers of bulk in that seam allowance. Okay, so let's glue this in when we're working with smart corners, we glue at the ends. We get those started, and then we come back and we do the other end. And what I'm doing is I'm actually in assembly graphic number 2 and 3. So now I'm matching here.
And you'll notice in your pattern it's a full diamond. She hasn't sewn the other part of the diamond on yet.
Yep, I have not.
But it's the same seam either way. So you can do it either way.
What haven't I sewn on?
The other piece.
Oh, I didn't assemble those pieces. Well, I don't think you do you?
Yes, you do. Look at your picture.
Oh, you're right. I am supposed to assemble those first.
It doesn't matter.
It's not going to matter on this one.
It's the same seam either way.
Yeah. But I was supposed to join these two pieces and then put it on here and then put it on there. Right. I jumped ahead. Thank you, Judelle, for telling me that. So I get that, and I like to take one after I do this and hit it with my steam iron. And it just kind of secures and dries that glue. And if it's a steam iron, it'll actually shrink that piece down into size. So and I'm going to grab my stiletto. And so the reason for the stiletto is so I can keep the seams poked down as I sew over them. Because my pressure foot's going to want to fold them back on me. All right, so I'm going to really quickly look, and it tells me to press that seam in that direction. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then we're going to add the piece where I was supposed to. Grab my starch pan. Now we're going to do this one where we should have done that first. So notice that I'm matching up here at the end. When you're working with a pattern that's designed from the Stella Maris mixers, it's really important to make sure you work with those smart corners. So let's press it before I sew. All right, so I'm going to go back here and let's see which way it tells us to press on these. You have a little sheet that came with your newsprint, and that's actually telling me to press. So this is going to be pressed to this side right here. And I want to point out a couple things about this. So when I put this piece on, there's a little TRP line, and that little TRP line matches up with the seam allowance on this piece. And then there's two TRP lines right there. Those TRP lines match up with your curve, this line right here, okay? So when you lay that in there, it's at 1/4 of an inch, it's gonna match up with that curve there, right? So let's go ahead and press this now. And now we're back in the right assembly order. This is where when you have 10 students in your classroom, they're all telling you that you're doing it wrong. And they're normally right. All right, so let's go ahead and let's put one of these little pieces on, and then we'll have a whole 1/4 of this together. So we're going to take this piece, and we're going to start right there, and I'm going to put a pin along that edge there. And then I'm going to start my glue right here on this side here. And then I'm going to come over to this smart corner, and I'm going to put my glue there and work it back. Then we're going to match that smart corner right there. And we're going to make that all fit. And it fits really nice there. Then I'm going to take, this is another one of those places where I have all that excess that I can actually, if I think about it, I can cut it off now. So I can fold that back and get that dog ear off of there. And that got rid of this bulk right there at that tip. So let's go ahead and sew this. I usually put the concave on the bottom when I'm sewing. That puts all your ruffle, where the ruffle is, that's going to be on the top. And I did remember that little trick I told you about gluing these little seams down right through here. I didn't do that, and so they're starting to want to come up on me. So I've got to grab my stiletto, and we're going to lift the pressure foot, and I'm gonna have to hold on to those as I sew over them. That's one of the nice things about having that glue under there. You don't have to, because it doesn't move. All right, that piece. Cut the thread at the end. And then this one, I'm leaving the pressing the same. So this pressing is, so this one I actually have that one going down, so this one goes up the way it says to in the pattern. So let's just... Okay, so then we're going to take one of these pieces, And that piece is going to sew on there like that. Line that up along that edge. Put a flower pin in there. Keep that edge straight. We're going to start over here, go back with my glue, and then I'm going to match this end there, and we're going to make that fit right along that edge. And it does, it fits perfectly. Right, there's no bulk on either end of that, so I should be able to just start sewing without any little paper, and it should just go through just fine. And on this last one, I'm going to put a little piece of paper under there because it's wanting to twist. And if I put the paper under there, then I can control the paper to make sure it doesn't move underneath the pressure foot. So now I have control over turning it rather than letting the machine guide it. Okay, so when you guys are making these, you should not have any excess on either end. It should all be straight here and straight here. If you have excess, it's because you're starting at one end, you're letting your machine stretch it as it goes. And if you actually match it up on both sides with the smart corners, put the glue on it and glue those raw edges, then it's going to match perfectly and you're going to have these nice straight lines there. So this one's going to get pressed in that direction, so I'll get that done. And now we're going to take these two pieces and they're going to go together like that. All right. So the smart corner fits there. The smart corner fits up here, so it should be a straight fit on both of them. So we're going to take this, we're going to put some glue on that one, and then we're going to put some glue right here and get that one to match. And then I'm going to look underneath this for that TRP line, and that TRP line is coming out where it's supposed to. Because what will happen is if you get these stretched, then when you start looking at the circles look like one's here and then the other one's down a little bit further. So that's what those TRP lines are there for, is to keep that straight. And when you fold it back at 1/4 of an inch, it should match the line for you. So I'm going to put my glue right on both sides of that. And then we're going to put some glue up here. We didn't mark both sides of the circle. We only marked the bottom edge of it. I'm just getting the edges together with the glue. And then I'm going to hit it with the iron. And another glue that actually works really good for assembling that I actually work with sometimes as well is actually the Acorn, and it's a clear heat set glue, and it holds better than the fabric glue on these seams like that. And it's really a nice glue, and it just goes along like this. and then you just heat set that, and you don't have to worry about your pieces stretching when you use this as well. So if you've ever had the acorn glue works really well as also. So I'm going to start sewing, but one thing I want to do before I sew is I'm going to actually lay my 1/4 inch ruler on here, because I want you guys to see where that's supposed to come out. So if I put my 1/4 inch ruler on my seam, it's coming right out on that point. They don't always come out on the point with a smart corner, but so you want to watch that to see where that's actually going to land. And on this one, it lands right on that point. So if I actually mark that, I would know exactly where I would want to sew. When I sew, I'm going to start just about a needle's width inside that mark. On this one, it's actually coming right out on the point too. So I basically have both of these marked exactly where I'm supposed to start. I know that when I start on that point, my feed dogs are going to take that, my needle's going to take it right into my feed dogs. And so I'm going to start with a little piece of paper on this end, right here. So we're going to start sewing on the paper. Get 3 or 4 stitches in there, lift your pressure foot, and then lay your needle right at the point, just on, I would say that's going to be the right side of that line, so that your needle is just off the tip there, and then you're going to start sewing. You're going over a lot of seams, so if you have a stiletto, use your stiletto to keep your seams straight, so that as you're sewing, if you have to, lift it and flatten the fabrics out. Because every time it goes over one of those seams of the spikes, it's going to bump it and push your machine off. Okay, when I get to the end, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab a little piece of paper, and I'm going to tuck it just underneath the tip there, and then I'm going to sew right along the right side of that line, and I'm going to go slow, and then I can hold on to that paper, and I don't have to worry about the machine pulling the fabric to one side or the other. And look at that, I ran on a thread. Did I run on a thread or did I break it? My thread broke. Let me see. I should not have ran on a thread. I did not. So we got to do that again. That's the other nice thing about glue. Is you get to sew it twice, but it always is in the same spot. The nice thing is I only had one of them. I didn't sew all 4 of them that way. Okay, so let's grab our little piece of paper again. Start this over. There we go. We'll do this again. Alright, and we're going to open it up and make sure that our seams line up perfectly straight. That's what I like, a nice straight seam here and a nice straight seam here. And the reason we have that is because we set those smart corners up and glued them first. Right? So now I can just take this, I'll just cut that paper right there and pull it off. Okay, so then the next step is to actually look, and this is actually the third graphic, or the second graphic on page 13, and it tells me that I'm going to press this to face the other piece, so everything's going to come around on my quilt clockwise from the top side. So I'm going to press this section towards me there. All right, so first of all, we'll press it flat.
Susan Bass says awesome.
Huh?
Susan Bass says awesome.
It is awesome.
And Jasmine says, I've held off on buying the acorn starch pens, but now that y'all are on board, I guess I'll go with it.
Oh, you'll love it. I mean, if you start using it the way we use it, it's just, everything lays down so nice. And I'll agree with you that when I first saw it, I was being polite and I watched it. But after I saw how beautiful those seams press down, I'm like, that is awesome. And I love their pens because they're a fatter pen than anything else I've seen on the market. And it really works great for all of this pressing. All right.
They're refillable.
Yes, and they're refillable.
And the tips can be replaced.
So we're going to do the last pressing on that seam. And that is what I call precision sewing. And when you guys are playing with this, it's a small quilt. It's got a lot of spikes in it. You're going to want to make sure you do your pressing, follow through and do the pressing as you assemble, and make sure you match all those smart corners, all right? And then watch for these TRP lines right here at the bottom of the circle so that when we're done, that it all rolls around, okay? What time is it, Judy?
3:35.
Okay, so let me tell you a couple other things about this quilt. Is this quilt, before you put that border on, you can actually sew 4 of these together and then add, I think it's 2 3/4 inch border, and it takes you to a 68-inch quilt. We don't actually have a template that gets you there, but like I said, I keep wanting to make 4 of them and assemble them. I'm not going to, but it actually is really cute. So if you're looking for a very simple product or a project that you can do, this is one that's really fun. And you just have to get enough fabric to do 4 kits. And then the outside borders, you can use the fabrics that come with your kits towards putting other borders together. And we have a whole bunch of borders that will take it up to an 80-inch once you get that first the 2.5-inch border. You have to get it up to 68 inches, which is 2 3/4 inch strip is what you have to cut and put on it. So anyway,
I'll
cute.
show you.
Oh, she's going to show you.
Transfer, but it's going to take just a second.
I'm going to put this on the wall.
Let's see. Images. Video. I need to figure out where it's at. Hold on, everybody. Oh, here we go. Open. Okay, that's what she's talking about, where you make 4 and then you can put some little borders around it and either just make it that size or turn it on point and then add any of our queen size borders to it. So that's a couple different layouts that will work. So let's see. transfer back to Judy.
So do you guys have any other questions? And so I think we're covered everything, you know, unless you want to watch me do some more chain piecing of the paper piecing. But I think we've actually covered all of the steps in this quilt. So if you have questions, let me know.
There's what it looks like on the wall, everyone. The little piece you put in there. So, a couple questions. I have one. Did you starch all your fabrics first?
No, I do not. I'm not going to tell you not to. That's totally up to you. I know some people do that, and it's very common if you're doing traditional piecing, because the starch keeps your pieces from stretching. With paper piecing, you don't have that issue like you would otherwise, but I've never been one to starch a lot of my fabrics. So, but I'm not going to tell you it's wrong, because it does work in a lot of cases when you have something that's really, really stretchy and flimsy.
Okay, I got another question. How long will the video be online? I can't start my quilt right away. It will be online forever. So go to the Quiltworx YouTube channel and you can click on playlists, and we have them all organized there with the name of the pattern, and you'll be able to get to the Antique Lighthouse and watch it whenever you want. The other thing is, on our website, we're in the process of updating it, and we have a little work to do, but there's an online classes page, and we're working on getting these all linked in the online classes page. And then also there should be a link as we do these on each of the pattern pages. So just a couple ways that you can get to that information. Someone said, can I buy more fabric to enlarge the quilt? That depends on the colorway. I have some additional fabric for some of the additional colorways. So you'd have to get in touch with me and tell me which one you bought and how much more you would like to make, and we can see if we can do that. If that doesn't work, if we don't have enough, you can always go back to, at the beginning of the video, I showed you hold on just a second. Let's see, let's switch over here. I showed you all of the different PDF files. You can click on those PDF files and it has all of the fabrics on there. So if we don't have it, you could always go in and search for a little bit more yardage of the other versions as well. So you can see it's got the SKU on there, so you can look it up. But if we have it, I'm happy to help you guys with something like that. Let's see. We do have some of the jellyfish fabrics. We might, I don't know. You'll have to send me a message and I'll have to go in and double check. Someone said, thanks. And what is your recommendation for a dry iron?
Just don't turn the steam on.
There you go.
I don't know if you can just buy an iron anymore that's just dry.
She happens to be using that.
I have one that's an antique dry iron. I prefer steam irons, but in the classroom, there's just no place to hang all my cords for my steam. So I started using this little antique one. I don't recommend it because if you leave it on, you can burn your house down with it. And it gets really, really hot.
Also, she burned a hole in a
quilt one day.
Quilt once. So anyway, so that was with the antique iron. So you don't want to make that mistake, because then you have to remake the pieces. Let's see, any more questions? Okay, I'm gonna switch for just a second over to this other view, because I thought it'd be kind of fun to show you guys something. See over on the wall, underneath the Antique Lighthouse that's finished on the wall, there's two little projects there, and those are some haystack cookies. We've got them quilted. They don't have binding on them yet, but you know, one step at a time around here. But anyway, we did 2 haystack cookies. That was the stash buster that was in your first box. And
I don't think they've seen that one quilted.
yeah, so here, we're going to show you a couple versions of this too. Here's this one. And
so this is one that we did a couple months ago.
hold on, I don't have it on your view yet.
Okay.
Here's that one. All right, one more view switch here. Okay, Judy's on. So this is the woven ribbon star. That's the one that we put into that's the stash buster that was in this box. And that one is the sample that we made and prepped for the video that we're going to release here very soon on it. That will be on our YouTube channel. It's about, I think it's around 14 minutes. And she can show you another version and maybe bring it around and we can show them. If you come up closer to the camera, they can see it quilted.
Okay.
Hold on. She's going to pin that up. And then we'll show you the one that's quilted. So the cool part about this one is it's quilted. We have digitized quilting designs for that. And it's a small project. So there's a good chance, yeah, you can see it really good. So there's a good chance that if you guys have an embroidery machine, those digitized designs would even be readable by an embroidery machine. You would just have to convert them to whatever file type you want. If you don't know how to convert them yourself, then you could call with the conversion style and Janie could help with that from here. But yeah, that might even be able to be quilted with an embroidery machine. So that design will be available and the video will be available and the pattern will be put into Quiltster. And I apologize that it's behind, but it'll be the end of August when everything starts to come out to help you put the finishing details on that. And part of the reason why is because that fabric line is what we decided to use in the pattern. And we have 100 kits going out that have that colorway. I don't know if it's exactly that much, but it's close to shops. And it's going to be officially published just like Haystack Cookies was. And so we didn't want to roll out pieces in little piecemeal steps. We wanted to kind of bring it out all at the same time. So anyway, that's going to happen end of August. We're still patiently waiting for our color stock collection to come in. And I'll be the first to admit that was my fault. Was our fault. We wanted to make sure that all the colors were perfect, and a couple of the colors that came back from the mill just weren't quite the right shade of orange or yellow or whatever. And so we had a couple extra sendbacks. We just think that that's important because it was a basics collection and we wanted the very best outcome possible because they're going to be around for a very long time. So we're very excited for color stock. We should be getting our first major shipments of it here in the next couple weeks for some sample projects and some very important things that have to get done on time, like the Q3 boxes. But most of it will be coming on a ship, oh my gosh, at the end of August, early September, and then we'll be off to the races. So I think that's everything. And
I think so.
You guys have a great afternoon. And if you have any more questions, you can always post them in the Quiltworx Box Club Facebook group. If you're not part of that, come join us. It's a lot of fun. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.